If you're working on an old boat, one day you're going to need to restore a boat hatch. Let me show you my secrets. Hi, I'm Joe, and welcome to Motor City Boat Werks. Let's get to work. Welcome back to my boat shop. If you're new to the channel, Motor City Boat Werks is my retirement amateur boat building and boat restoration studio. It's where I make how-to videos about some of the boat restoration projects that I'm working on. My episodes are information heavy. I try to cover all the tips and tricks, some of my lessons learned from working on the various projects inside my boat works. It takes a little bit of time to cover all this information. I hope you stick with me. If you've been watching my channel, you know that I recently completed a massive project installing the headliner in the Albin 27 behind me. I've completed phase 1 of this boat restoration project. Now it's time to move on to phase 2, installing all the systems. But this is going to take quite a while because I've got to source all the materials and components. I got to figure out how they all go together, and I also got to figure out how I'm going to explain it to you. So for now, I've set the trawler project aside and I'm concentrating on the Skipper 20 trailerable sailboat. We're working on the forward hatch for the Skipper 20 sailboat. The boat, the hatch that it came with, was a homemade job that the previous owner built for the boat. It was made out of plywood with some epoxy over it. And it has a little bit of a high profile. The corners are square and lines catch on it. So I'm going to be replacing it with a used hatch that I found on Craigslist or Marketplace. You can find them for as little as $20 or $30. They might look like boatyard junk, but to me, they're hidden treasure. I've talked about this before in one of my other episodes, the hatch episode. I just love putting hatches into my boats. I think it adds a lot in terms of ambiance and light, and it makes it very comfortable, especially when they're opening. So we're going to be replacing the forward hatch with this used hatch that I have here. Now this is a 1980s, 1990s Bowmar extruded hatch. I want to take a moment to point out that you need to kind of assess whether or not this project is for you. Restoring old boat hatches may not be for everyone. There are certain boat building and boat restoration projects where you don't need an old restored hatch. You need something brand new. If you're building an offshore boat, you've got a sailboat that you know is going to be out in blue water, you're going to want a brand new hatch that you can feel confident in. But for other applications, it's possible to restore old hatches and kind of breathe new life into them. You can really save yourself a lot of money. The tips I'm going to be giving pertain strictly to Bomar aluminum extruded hatches. I've restored other types and brands of hatches. They all kind of have their own intricacies. Other brands of hatches might require different techniques, and you've got to determine whether it's even worth it in the first place. Step 1. Determine the condition of your hatch and what needs to be repaired. I've done this several times, especially on the Albin 27 pocket trawler. That's where many of the hatches on there came from, at least the ones that I added. And I wanted to show my methodology for how I go about restoring one of these hatches and the steps you have to go through. These hatches, when they're new, they cost several $100s. They might be $400 or $500 depending on the size of the hatch. And very likely the hatch that you buy today will not be of the same quality that they were, 2 decades ago. Things are just made out of plastic now instead of some of the heavier duty components. So what we need to do is we're going to be cleaning up some of the components. We're going to be cleaning up the aluminum extruded frame here. We're going to be pulling out the lens. So this is the lens. This is the hatch frame. These are the hinges. These pieces right here are the top of the handles on the bottom side. You can see that they're kind of corroded. I believe they're made out of aluminum or something like that. We'll pull them out. We'll clean them up and repaint them. We'll pull out this old lens and we'll reseal this with some special silicone, and we'll talk about that. I don't normally recommend silicone on the boats, but there is a particular application for this type of silicone. It's a very special type of silicone. You can't buy it in a normal big box store. You have to order it. We're going to be using that to reseal this lens. On the back side here, this all looks in pretty good shape. Of course, we're going to need a new gasket. This is the gasket here. It goes inside here. It's got to be replaced because it's pretty much old. And we've got at least one dog here that's got to be replaced. This is the handle. It's a locking mechanism. We've got to replace that because obviously it's broken off. All right, let's get to work here. Motor City Boat Werks has no sponsors. I get no compensation from any of the products or the items that I talk about on my channel. Please subscribe and tell a friend. Spread the word about Motor City Boat Werks. Repairing or restoring one of these hatches is not cheap. This hatch is approximately 20 by 20 inches. Brand new, it costs more than $800. A replacement handle for one of these hatches is at least $50, $60. The gasket alone can be $50, and the sealant to do this project can cost you $20 or $30. At the beginning of your project, you've really got to decide whether or not it's worth it to repair the lens or just go ahead and buy a new hatch. Step 2. Order your replacement hatch parts. On Bowmar hatches, there's usually a serial number somewhere on the hatch, and you need that number. So when you call a distributor, you can figure out what the replacement parts are for the hatch itself. Now, this might not be true for other brands of hatches, but on the Bowmars, you're going to want to call this number, and with some measurements in the serial number, try and identify what type of hatch it is and what are the replacement parts. Step 3. Strip down the old hatch and clean it up. These hatches come apart fairly easily. It's just some silicone holding the lens in place and just 2 screws that hold the dogs in place. You unscrew that and everything comes apart. There's a variety of washers and things inside the handle assembly. You want to make sure that everything is put back together the way it was before. Resist the urge to throw everything away. Keep all of the old parts because you may end up reusing some of them. I've had success cannibalizing one hatch into another hatch in order to come up with the parts that I need. Don't take apart the hinges. The stainless steel screws are often seized to the aluminum. Just tap the hinge pin back into place and make sure that it functions properly. After you get all the components apart from the hatch, the next step is going to be cleaning off all of the old silicone, the sealant that was used to hold the lens in place. It's all got to be removed through a combination of, well, I use acetone and I use a little bit of kind of mechanical scrubbing to try and get the surface both on the lens and on the extruded frame clean. It takes a lot of effort and it will take several passes across the frame to make sure you get everything. There's a variety of tools that I use to do this. A small bronze toothbrush, a pick, maybe the sharp edge of a screwdriver. You got to be very careful on the aluminum frame. You got to get all of the silicone out of all of the crevices. On the edge of the lens, I'm able to remove the silicone by using a small razor blade, and I can kind of clean it up with a little bit of acetone. Be very careful about getting acetone on the plastic lens itself. Step 4. Clean and polish the extruded aluminum frame. This next step is an important one because the frame has to be very, very clean in order to accept the new silicone when the lens is reinstalled inside the frame. Not to mention, this is what makes an old grimy hatch suddenly turn into something new and shiny. For this type of cleanup, I use a product called Neverdull. It works really well to remove any type of surface grime and oxidation from the aluminum frame. When I was in the military, we used this product a lot. It's basically cotton swabbing that's infused with some chemicals. It'll clean up a metal surface. It's debatable whether it should be used on anodized aluminum, but I've never had a problem. Don't scrub too hard and wash the surface with soap and water afterwards. Step 5. Clean and polish the lens. Usually the lenses for these hatches are made out of Lexan or some type of polycarbonate plastic. In order to polish the lens, you need to use some sort of polishing compound. I like to use Meguiar's. They have several different versions of polishing compound. You want something that's relatively low cut. The idea is to remove any grime or oxidation and to get it back to a shiny surface. It doesn't take much effort, just a little bit of elbow grease. This is also a great time to note if there's any cracks in the lens. You may have to replace the whole piece of plastic. Pay particular attention to where the dogs, the handles, come through the lens and then are held in place by their caps. There's an O-ring that goes around the dog shaft, and that's what creates the watertight seal for the handle to move. The plastic surface has to be very clean for that O-ring. That was good. Step 6. Rebed the lens. So what I'm going to be doing today is I'm going to be putting the lens into the forward hatch that's going to go on the Skipper 20. You'll remember we took this whole thing apart and we cleaned all of the old silicone seal out of the inside here. I'm going to be putting in, this is the lens, right? The original lens. It's in good shape. It's clean. It's been polished. We're going to put this back inside here. It goes in like that. Now, it's important, look around here. You see the space here that I'm talking about? So this space goes all the way around. It's got to be even. That gets filled with the sealant. In this case, we're going to be using a special sealant that's just for this purpose. So we have to put enough sealant in here and then drop this inside there and get a nice seal all the way around. At the same time that that's happening, we also have to get in place the new gasket. So this is the old gasket, and this is the new gasket. This is what it looks like when it comes from the manufacturer. You can see this is actually the same gaskets. The difference is this one has been crushed down over time. This is what it looks like when it's proper. It's kind of a multi-step process. There's several things that we have to do first. The first of which is, let's clean everything with acetone, make sure it's good to go, especially the frame. We'll be careful with the lens there, we don't want to damage it. But let's clean this real good with acetone, and then we're going to cut the length of the gasket to match the old one. We're going to fit the gasket first using a little bit of sealant, and then we'll go back, we'll drop the lens in. So now I'm taping this off. This is not the time to be using the blue painter's tape. It will not give you a tight enough edge, so you really want to be using this yellow tape. This yellow tape is automotive, auto shop body tape. Gives a very nice edge. We use it for the non-skid projects, things where we need a very, very good edge. This is a crucial step because this is what makes sealant. It's going to have a really nice edge once this is put on there. I'm going right up to the edge here. I want to be able to pull this off and have sealant right up to the edge there. Nice squeezed in there. So this is a lesson that they don't really tell you about, but when you're cutting your new gasket material, you might be tempted to use the old gasket material and kind of put the two side by side and measure it out, thinking that you're going to get something that's the right size. I'm going to tell you, don't do that, because what will happen is you don't know whether the old gasket that was on there shrunk down over time or was even the wrong size to begin with. You want to go ahead and put your gasket on fresh, measure it proper to the frame, and then cut it to get your butt joint. If you don't do that, you may end up with a piece of gasket that's too short. Ask me how I know. All right, today what we're doing is we're going to be attaching the lens to the aluminum frame for the Bowmar Hatch that we're restoring. We've got our gasket material that goes inside there. This is the actual lens. I've gone ahead and taped it off all the way to the edges and on the frames. Now, why do I do that? Well, the reason that's done is because it's important that when the hatch is on here, that it sits and kind of floats in the silicone sealant that we're going to put all the way around here. You can see the edge, right? And once we kind of squirt it inside there and then drop the lens inside there, this sealant will push out. We'll wipe it off, and get a real nice kind of finish to it all the way around. Then, before it dries, we'll go ahead and start pulling up the tape and getting it off of there so we kind of eliminate our mess. All right, we're going to use this here. So this is the glue that we're going to be using here. This is Dow 795. This is a type of industrial grade silicone. It's used for putting windows and skyscrapers. You can buy this product on Amazon. I'll leave a link in the show description. This product is very similar to the original sealant that was actually used in the hatches. In fact, it might even be the same thing. There's a couple things you need to know about it. The first thing is that it dries tack-free in about 24 hours, but it doesn't fully cure until 7 to 14 days later. It takes an extremely long time to fully dry. The success of this product is entirely related to how clean the surface is that you're actually putting it on. So you got to make sure that your frame and your lens are really clean and ready to go. To install the gasket, use a small amount of 795 to get the gasket to stick to the inside of the frame, especially in the corners as you work your way around. All right, what am I doing? I'm putting these little dots on here of silicone to hold that gasket in place. Sometimes it can be a challenge to get it to come around properly without coming off as you're trying to fit it. A little bit of silicone, hold it in place. We'll go back and fill in the outer part here in just a second. Don't forget to seal the butt joint with silicone. You can tell that it's in the corner real tight. All right, now what we do next, we've got the gasket in place. Now we're gonna put the lens in place. And to do that, we gotta put a bead of the 795 silicone all around here. It's essentially what connects to the side here. So it goes like this. Ensure you apply an even bead and make sure you fill the gap completely. Take the lens. You gotta make sure it's oriented the right way. In this case, the hinges are at the top, the holes are at the bottom. And now we put this into this spot here. And it drops right in. Now what we want to do is we want to press down on it a little bit. And we want to ensure that we get a good seal all the way around. And we want it to be fairly uniform. And we don't want to get it on the lens. At this stage, one of the things I like to do is you got to put a little weight on it so it has something pushing the lens down into the silicone. Next, I take my finger, I get it wet with a little bit of acetone, and I run it along the bead of sealant so that I kind of smooth it out and be sure that it's pushed in, closing the gap. This is a key moment. You got to make sure that you pull your finger so that the sealant gets kind of pulled smooth. You don't want to have any stops or starts. You don't want it to have any sort of texture. You want it to be completely flush with the lens in the frame. So the final step is before this dries to pull off the masking tape. But you got to be very careful. This is what gives you the clean edge. I'm not worried about the masking tape down here. I'm only worried about it up here where the silicone's at. See how it's leaving that nice edge? Step 7, reassemble. All right, today I'm hoping for a moment of completion. We're gonna get the hatch back together. We've got a new gasket on the inside here. We've got the new lens that's set in with the silicone. Now we're gonna be putting on the hardware, the handles and such. This is the new one that I purchased. I purchased it online. It's official Bowmar part. They cost about $50 a piece. So you want to hold on to any spares or components that you come up with and just save them over time, because you got to buy the whole assembly if something goes wrong and you ever need to replace something. This has a washer. Has a take a look at this. Is an O-ring inside here, and this is what keeps This is what keeps water from leaking through. Sometimes they will go bad. This is a new one. This is what an old one looks like, broken. Okay? And what we really need to do, this is another one. It's also broken. It's got to be flush against the glass here, right? It only fits in there one way. It locks in place. It's got to be flush against the glass. So when you take this handle apart, right? This is what it looks like. This is the old one that we're going to use. But here's a new one that we're putting in. Basically, it has a piece that sticks up from the bottom, and it marries with this on the inside of the hatch. Now, it comes with a variety of washers and stuff inside there. They are different sizes and different thicknesses, so you can experiment with how tight you need to get the dog. It'll wear out over time. Some people will put some type of lubricant or something on here, or they'll put it inside the gasket that's on here, but I generally don't do that when I'm first putting them on here. I want to see how they work before I have to start doing that. This little piece right here that sticks out, this is for when you if you change out the arm here, the opening arm here. But we won't be doing that. So on this side over here, this is the left side. So we're going to put this in here. I feel like this goes in. Make sure it doesn't pinch the gasket. Get a good seat. I'm sure somebody who does this professionally, they'll know exactly what the combo is, but I kind of figure it out as I go. And so I'm down to one. I use one thick washer. Let's try this again. Here we go. See if the third time's a charm. Put the hatch on there. Oh, look at that. Now it pulls it tight with a nice positive blocking there. Great, fantastic. All right, so now we got the hatch. We got everything installed here. We got the new dogs in. We put this down. Look at this. 1 and 2. Look at that. There is your restored hatch. And here we go. There you go. Moment of completion. A restored Bowmar low profile hatch. $20 on Craigslist. Put another $100 into it. It's ready to go. So this brings us to the end of the first part of the forward hatch project on the Skipper 20. I still have to come up with a base for the hatch that's going to match the camber of the deck of the sailboat. I'll be back soon with another episode and we'll talk about that project. I want to thank you for stopping by. We'll see you next time in your boat project. Stay motivated. If you like these videos, please hit the subscribe button. These videos would not be possible without your support.